One of the hardest things to do when you're faced with the truth of the gospel, especially if you've been in false, lies have been engraved in you, such as lordship, salvation. One of the hardest things to do is just submit to the truth of the gospel. Just believe it. Because everything inside of you, if you've been brought up from a lordship, salvationist, works gospel background, everything inside of you is going to fight against the true gospel. Okay? You're going to be like a version of Paul. Before Paul was Paul, when he was Saul, he was killing Christians. He was ignorant. Okay? He was ignorant. He was killing Christians thinking he was doing the right thing. And some people, they hate us. They hate us that believe grace through faith. They think they have the right gospel. You have to work here. You can't just believe. You got to do something too. And everything inside of them is fighting us. They don't want to. It was hard for me. It says years ago I believed the true gospel when I was young. And I remember, I don't know the date, but I remember when my father shared the gospel with me. I was a kid, but I believed it, and I was happy. And I was looking forward to heaven and Jesus and everything. My eyes were opened, But then I got, like I said, I've said this story a million times, I got caught up in lordship salvation doctrine. And it stole my happiness. It ruined my life. I was the most sinful I've ever been in my entire life when I was a lordship salvationist. Because I was living a life under law. I wasn't living by grace. I had no idea what grace was. I knew the Bible talked about grace every now and then, but I didn't know that was something free. I didn't know that was God's unmerited favor towards the Christian. I thought God was angry with me. Angry with me 24/7. And if I wasn't penitent, if I wasn't repentant right after if I didn't stop what I was doing, I'm going to hell. My salvation used to be based off of me. And one of the hardest things to do is about almost 5 years ago now, was to submit to the truth again. Okay? So I'm living proof of a person that can get saved at a young age and then go down the path of destruction of false doctrine and then get all kinds of deceived, and then years later get the truth re-explained to him. Say, hey, you forgot, man. Go back to your former love, your first love. You forgot that you were purged from your old sins. See, I had forgot that. Just like, I think it's in 1 Peter or 2 Peter. I'm not sure. It talks about that. Forgetting that you were purged from your old sins. I did, because I kept trying to get forgiveness all the time when I was caught up in false doctrine. Every day at church was like a new salvation experience. It was ridiculous. Go down to the altar and, weep and wail and gnash your teeth. Cry out. Shed some tears while the person on the piano plays the sad music and the smallest violin in the world. I'm not saying that having emotion over God is bad or nothing, but and I'm not saying feeling bad for sin is bad. But what I am saying is when you turn that into you having to get saved again, or you try to act like you feel bad, or try to show God tears so He will forgive you, no. That's not right. Okay? When we turn, we all know that we as Christians can feel guilt over sin and stuff. But we need to know how to deal with that guilt, okay? We need to realize that Christ has already taken the guilty verdict for us. He's already finished it. The reason we feel guilt when we sin is because we're born again. And we know it's wrong. But you can't mistake that guilt for loss of salvation or something, or, you can't. We all have a conscience, okay? And that's the truth. But the thing is, one of the hardest things for me to do when I got when I got the gospel re-explained to me was let go of all the crap I was taught, let go of self, and rely totally on Jesus. Because I had all those lies from the lordship salvation. It's engraved in me. Okay, it was hard. And I'm still getting some of the filth out today, 5 years later. After 9 years of that. And it spun me down the path of least resistance, or it spun me down the path of destruction. Led to years of alcoholism and, drug abuse. I was drinking just to cover my guilt up and because every time I would sin, I'd feel more, horrible, like I was going to go to hell, and I kept drinking. It was driving me crazy, because every time I would sin, I would mess up. I had the wrong thought that all lordship salvation is to, which every time you sin, that means you're going to lose your salvation if you don't stop it. So, but I couldn't stop sinning, It's funny, they would say, well, you can never stop perfectly sinning, you can never perfectly stop sinning, but you need to stop every time you do. It's just crazy, and that led me to craziness. Then it got to the point where I gave up, I said, God, if this is what Christianity is, I can't do this. I can't be perfect. Not knowing the whole time that God never required me to be perfect. It was His Son, it was Jesus Christ that's perfect. He just wanted me to accept His Son. He wanted me to accept His love, and I'm sitting here trying to work for His love. It's sad. People get so spun around backwards. That's Satan's deal, though. That's what he wants to do, is turn everything backwards and inside out to get you to do the exact opposite of what God wants. Salvation's so easy, but He wants to make it so hard. Salvation's free, but He wants you to think you got to cost you everything to get it. You ever heard that stupid cliche? Salvation's free, but it's going to cost you everything. That's so retarded, for lack of a better word to explain that. People saying that salvation's free, but it's going to cost you everything. No, salvation's free, and something free doesn't cost you a thing. But yeah, the hardest thing for me to do was to let go of the lies, because everything inside of me was screaming, trying to say, when people were trying to teach me the true gospel of grace, they were trying, this crap I was taught was telling me, hey, that's a lie. Your salvation's not this easy. But see, I got the gospel explained to me when I was a child, but I didn't understand, the doctrines of the Bible or anything, It's unfortunate that after I got saved when I was a child, I immediately, years down the road when I got a little older, I started going to church. Well, I think I was in church when I was a child still, but I didn't really, as you're a child, you really don't understand that much. But my first Bible readings was always indoctrinated into lordship salvation. So I thank God so much that when I got saved, I got saved at a young age, because He knew that I was going to have to go through this lordship salvation, this bullcrap, to really understand, to really get in, understand His grace. I think the Lord lets us go through a lot of things to where we can really see, hey, this is how much He loves you. But my first Bible reading and understanding was brought up in the Lordship Salvationist camp. So right off the bat, after I got saved, I was deceived, being cultivated into a false, false teacher. But see, I never went around teaching that. I got so fed up with that Lordship Salvation doctrine, I just gave up. I fell out of church, and I started my 9 years of rebellion. I was rebelling against that false god they created, thinking that was the real God I was rebelling against. That's why I was so scared, thinking I was going to go to hell, because I was out in the world sinning. No, I was rebelling against the false God that they painted for me, and God knew that, but I believe He let me work myself up to the point of about losing my mind, to where I finally had to sit back and say, hey, there's something that's got to be changed here. Okay, I need to understand the truth, And I think that's what He wanted me to do, is to kind of burn myself to the point to where I could not rely on anything. Just like people, like lifeguards going out to catch somebody that's drowning. I've heard people say this: you have to let the person burn themselves out before you go save them. If not, they will drown you. I'm not saying that we could drown God. I'm just saying that as long as you're working, God's standing there. You got to stop working. Let Him do the work. Is the point of that. But for anybody out there that's been brought up in the Lordship Salvationist background, this is kind of what this video is about. Here, 5 years later, after I finally started understanding the truth again, I'm still getting these fears and anxieties out of me. It's devastating what lies can do to you. That's why there's so many, warnings in the New Testament and all through the Bible. Do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. We can't be deceived. Not saying we're ever going to be perfect and we want to, but especially by the major issues like losing salvation, you can't be deceived about that. 90% of people, I believe, that believe you can lose it are not even saved. And there's a very few percentage, I believe, that believe losing salvation, that they're saved. I'm one of them. I kind of believe that you could lose your salvation for years. But I was saved before I believed that. But that's why I don't go off the wall and automatically say somebody's unsaved if they believe in losing salvation, because I was one of them, and I was saved. But God bless everybody. This is just about the past of Lordship Salvationists and how hard it was to start letting go of the lies and accepting the truth. God bless everybody and have a good day.